Rahul. And first of all, I think I would like to thank you, Rahul, for helping me come up with this whole platform. I mean, this is your platform, and Dose with Grace is very grateful to Up Your Game for bringing it from a page on a Facebook to a platform like this. And big thanks to all of you for coming here and giving this Dose with Grace such bigger meaning with your presence. And I'd like to thank my three panelists. They are very dear to me. I've been working with one of them. I have been chatting a lot with the other ones. And the third one is, you'll come to know how special she is with the kind of work she does and the conversations, how they flow. So without much ado, I'd like to formally introduce with you my panel. So Maddie, to my left, is intrigued by human behavior during change processes. During daily interactions in workplace or community settings or in private spaces, she has the privilege to observe and support people when overcoming the hurdles that come with managing change. Currently, she is a senior consultant for a regional organization that enables her to align work with passion. How beautiful is that? In her free time, she cares for a petting zoo together with her husband and engages in community work. We'll get to know more about her as we start our conversations. The panel in the center is Dr. Vimala Murali. Dr. Vimala is a women's emotional wellness mentor. She's a life strategy coach, homeopath, and batch flower remedies practitioner. She's also a mother of two and a certified public accountant. Well, she gave up her job at the position of financial controller. So, wow, what a shift in career and an interesting person to conversate with. To my extreme left is very dear Eileen Yap. Eileen Yap is the founder of local fashion label Noel Caleb and social enterprise Singapore Fashion Runway, which is fashion for a social cause, to nurture the special needs and disadvantaged communities through an inclusive movement called Fashion for a Social Cause. Eileen is also an honoree of the Spirit of Enterprise Award 2014. So before we start the conversation, let's welcome the three panelists with a great round of applause. So Madeline, as I said in my introduction, I don't have, the Soul Conversations format is a format that came into my mind 2 years ago, almost like 1.5 years ago, where I saw that we learn so much from our conversations. The conversations that we have intergeneration, like the conversations we used to have with our grandmothers, who probably were not so educated and exposed to the world as we are, but the learnings were so profound because they were so much in the flavor of fun and so much in the flavor of moment that the learnings were so inspiring and they still stay with me. Especially for me, it has been that way. Similarly, we see in our surroundings, the best of the relationships are formed through authentic and lively conversation that we have. I think the best bonds that I formed with the people are with the people who I've had the opportunity to have very deep, fun, very casual, yet very inspiring conversations. It could be a friend, it could be a colleague at work, it could be your own children, it could be your family, relatives. But then, with a period of time as technology took over, the conversations were limited to WhatsApp messages, emails, or Facebooking. So here's an attempt, a very humble attempt, to bring that era where people just sit and talk. And there is no paper, there are no questions, there's no format which we need to adhere to, but just the conversations flow, and where one soul, not the personality, but a soul, the true authentic you, talks to another soul, the true authentic person that you're sitting against or sitting with. So having said that, Madeline, I'd like to ask you, I think we first met at the Death Cafe, event that was organized by Up Your Game during the Halloween week, and it was a beautiful concept where there were different groups that sit together and we discussed death, which is generally a very taboo topic to discuss. And Maddie was one of the speakers to lead one of the groups. Though you couldn't reach in time, but you were there in the end, and you shared something that stuck me, that you've been saving for your coffin from the age of 14. That was something rare that I had not heard in the long. I think I've never heard it before, and I don't know after that I ever heard that kind of conversation from someone. So, would you like to tell us more about what is your understanding of the experience of death, and why this kind of thing that you're doing?
Hello everyone. So we were talking about death in unusual formats, and when I was saying that I'm saving, actually it was my mom saving. So a bit of a background. I'm Christian Orthodox. My grandmother is Catholic, my mother is Catholic, and on my father's side they're all Muslim. So you can imagine the division that happens when somebody passes away. You don't exactly know what to do. So when you're young, you need to make sure that you know what you want to happen to your body. So my grandmother said, first, pick a religion, then pick a way you want to be buried, and then start saving so that people who pay for it don't claim it. So I found that to be pretty enlightening. So when you turn 14, you start joining a society that's called the Old Funerary Society. Every month you pay the equivalent of €2 or so, and then until the end of your life, they would make sure that you get buried, that all the rites are carried out. Whether you're Catholic, Jewish, Christian, doesn't really matter. So my grandmother is part of this society. She's 95, so I think she paid for all of us to be buried, seriously. My mother is also paid for the same thing, so I decided to join. I thought it was a very responsible thing to do, especially because I married a non-believer. He's very Buddhist and very Chinese, and he will be lost. He has no idea what to do for an Orthodox person. So it just makes sense not to burden others. Take care of the expenses, take care of the ceremony, and then just go on with it.
That's interesting, because we talked so much about life, and I think this is what came out in that whole session. That we talk so much about life, and we think death, which is so inevitable, is considered to be such a taboo, closed-door topic, and we don't really want to talk to, especially our younger generation, about it. And taking that knowledge as such a with such responsibility, that you make sure that your last journey is also well taken care of, just gives you such a wonderful perspective to life. And I clearly remember how Rahul had closed that evening by saying that once you have, we all set goals, right? And that's what we learn all our life, that we should set a goal and then walk backwards. Life is the biggest journey that we're taking. Once we know there's an end point, we work backwards to it. There's perspective to everything that we do. If we could live forever, we could get married at 50 and we could have children at 70 and we wouldn't know what to do with our life. Now once we have ending point, now we know how to give perspective to everything else in our life. Thank you for sharing that, Maddie. Moving on, Vimala ji, I have been so blessed to meet with her and understand so many dimensions about her as a woman, as a mother, as a professional, as well as now a mentor and coach, helping so many women cure their physical pains by going deeper into understanding their emotions, because she believes in that every pain is basically an emotional pain. How did you come to arrive at this journey, which is so different from your accounting life, from your earlier education, and now it is so different and you're healing so many people. So what brought about this change?
Thank you, Aarti. Can everyone hear me? Is there an echoing?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, my journey. I did accounting because my parents told me to. Okay. Simple as that. My father, we were living in Dubai at that time, and once I finished secondary school and high school, there was no further education there other than one Arab university, which obviously I wasn't going to go to. So my father said, I'm not going to send you anywhere. You can study anything you want from here. So my options were very limited, as you can tell. So at that time, I was thinking of probably doing a correspondence course, studying, now called distance learning. In those days, it was called correspondence course, where you received lessons by mail, and then you would send in your tests and exams by mail, and that sort of thing. So now you know how old I am. Anyway, so it so happened that around that time, my parents decided to kind of get me married off. So I had just completed my +2, which is the equivalent of A-levels. And so I met my wonderful husband. He was already a Singaporean, so I came here. And then I studied accounting, because I had already chosen that, I had started the process. So I studied accounting here and then went on to work for about 15 years. Very good jobs. I was in audit and financial accounting. And then when I left that job, when I left that career, was because my children were very young. And it was either him or me. It has to be my husband or myself giving up work. And guess who gave up? Not too difficult to guess. So I gave that up not because I didn't love it. I loved my job. The challenges you get as a financial controller, you're no longer just doing numbers. You're actually solving problems. You're like the CEO's right-hand person. So you're doing a lot of stuff, steering the way the company is going with things, managing the costs, doing a lot of different things. And I was very blessed because, though it was difficult for others, I went through several mergers. My company was bought over, the company I was working for was bought over by a bigger group. So, and then they made me the financial controller for the whole group, which meant a lot more work. But it was also challenging. It kept my adrenaline rush, going. So that I was happy with that. But when I gave up work, I couldn't become the domestic goddess. Although I wanted to, but I couldn't. I did the cooking and cleaning, but nothing more than that. Okay. So once my sons went to secondary school, I was bored. I didn't know what to do because they went in the morning and they came back quite late in the evening. Now what was I going to do with my time? So I didn't go back to finance because again the long hours, the stressful work and everything. See, what had happened in that time was while I was working crazy hours, 12-hour days were the norm for me. 15 hours were like, okay, there were days when I went home at 1 a.m. and then went back to work at 8 a.m. It was like that. So it was going on like that for several years. My health was giving me signals. It was showing me my whole gynecological system was haywire. And without going into too many details, it was giving me a lot of problems. But I would just pop pills. Every time I went to the gynecologist, he would give me hormones. I would pop them in and then carry on with work. Every morning I would wake up like a zombie because my head would be spinning because of the hormones. But I still carried on with life. I would get terrible migraines and I thought, okay, that's just normal, because I'm working long hours, I'm sitting at the computer. These are things women can relate to, right? We all go through these things. So I would pop Panadol, I would pop hormones, and I would just do that and say, what else can I do? This is my life. I have to earn the money for my children, for my family, to upgrade the house, to upgrade the car. The usual Singaporean way of doing things. I did that. Okay. But my health was deteriorating. And just about a year or so before I quit work, I was diagnosed with a precancerous condition of the womb. Yet I popped the hormones, and because I was still young at that time, I think I was about 35, 36. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to get the uterus removed, so I'm just going to carry on, pop the pills and carry on. And it got better for a while, so I thought, okay, it's gone. Then it was still coming back. Went back to the gynae, the same problem was coming back. It wasn't going away. So my husband said, look, we can't afford to have this going on. What if it turns into cancer? And then you regret it. So I quit work because of the children and the health issues. But the reason I went back to study natural health care, which is natural medicine, I did homeopathy, is because of this. Because I had been popping pills and ruining my health. And I said, no, there has to be a better way for women. Okay? And there has to be a different way. I had grown up with homeopathic medicine because my father was a homeopath, but he was doing it just as a side thing. He used to just serve people for free. So I didn't look at it as a career, even though he would have wanted me to look at it as a career. I said, no, this is something you do for free. How can I make money from it? I can't live on that, right? So I didn't take that up at that time when he wanted me to. But later, when I was free, I said, okay, now what do I do? Okay, why don't I study homeopathy? So I went back to study. It was a 5-year part-time program, so I did that. I got the qualifications, and then, as any newbie, I took whatever clients I could get. Because whoever said homeopathy, are you doing homeopathy? I want to come. Okay, come, please. Anything. From skin diseases to migraines to menstrual difficulties to whatever clients I could get, I was just taking those. But over time, I found that my own passion is for helping women. Because they are the ones who can understand my story. It's hard for a man to understand when I talk about gynecological problems. I mean, he understands it intellectually, or if he has a spouse or partner or girlfriend who's going through similar things, he sees her being irritable and crazy and certain times of the month and all those things. But other than that, he doesn't know what's going on. Right? So I thought that me having gone through that, I could help other women, especially other women who are going through these issues. And also, as time went on, I realized that it's actually the emotional suppression that's causing a whole host of problems. Okay? Even it was the same thing for me, because I didn't deal with my stress. I thought I was, but I didn't. I enjoyed the stress, therefore I thought it must be okay. Because I enjoyed the challenges of my work. So I thought there shouldn't be any problem with this. But there was a lot of stress building up because I wasn't dealing with it. I was just running with it. Like your comic strip yesterday, right? The rat that keeps running, was it the mouse or the rat? Yeah, the rat. That keeps running and running and running and running and takes the happy pills and feels happy and flies and then realizes one day he just falls to the ground, right? So I was going through that. Literally, I lived that life. Okay? So over time, I realized that no, when we don't deal with the emotional issues, the physical issues will keep coming back. Because the body is giving messages. It's always telling us something. And when we don't pay attention, trust me, your migraine is a message. It's a nuisance, but it's still a message. Okay? And if you don't pay attention to dealing with what's going on under that, you just keep popping the pills, it's not going to go away. You'll just come up with something else. Right? And that's what I do. So now I work with women dealing with their emotional issues, whether it's from relationship, parenting, raising children, their own health issues, whatever the area of stress may be, but I work with them on releasing those, and then they start getting better. And once they get to a place where they are more balanced now in their emotional situation, then I help them work on building what life they want to build. So that's where the coaching part comes in. Right? So we do more of the coaching and work towards where they want to go. All right? So that's a long story. So thank you for being patient and listening to me. All right? I'll pass it back to Aarti. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did very well, and I think this is the whole purpose of having soul conversations. Though it's a long story, but we enjoy, didn't we? Right? And this is what we need to bring ourselves back to our children back to, where people can share with an open heart, and people are there to receive it with an open heart. So I think we really enjoyed your story. And now coming to Eileen. Well, I think the introduction that I read out for Eileen doesn't completely qualify the things that she's doing. My journey with Eileen goes back almost 2 years. When I think I had finished, I participated in a pageant. Yeah, that was in my bucket list, so ticked. And soon after, I saw a few of the people I knew. They were part of Singapore Fashion Runway at that time. And I just used to browse through the events that Singapore Fashion Runway does and the kind of work they're doing. I joined them. But the more I knew the work Eileen is doing, the work Eileen and her husband and her children together put in the effort and the community they are building together, the more I got sucked into it. Kindness is so addictive that the more you understand it, the more you want to give it. And if there is something I can say that Singapore Fashion Runway has given to me and my family, it has given us the joy of giving. And gradually I could see that not just me, my husband, my children, we would be in the different workshops, different events that Eileen is doing at Singapore Fashion Runway. And my first question to you would be that what made you think of such a difficult venture to start and put your heart and soul into it? And I know it's a struggle every day. It's a struggle every day. As Eileen puts it, you earn for yourself every single day. And she's bringing inclusivity. And I strongly believe in it. She's actually telling that no one is disabled. We all are equal. And bringing that message so beautifully by hands-on groundwork that she's doing is incredible. So give her a round of applause for Eileen, please tell us, what made you take that daring step from having a comfortable cushion job as a teacher and before that in corporate? Please do tell us.
Thank you. So actually, I think Aarti said it very well. Yeah, so what kept me going, or what kept me started was that I think maybe the passion of I think bringing people together as well. And I think for me, it just happened that my product was, or my mode was fashion. So I guess I didn't think too much about the business side of it. I guess it's like, first I have a product, you know, like, yeah, and then how does this product bring happiness to people? And with fashion, now that I started my journey in 2011 as a local brand called Noel Killet, so I get like young designers to design, and then I got home seamstresses to sew. So I ended up with lots of clothes around my house. You know, so like with every entrepreneur, I think product development is one of the most heavy like investment, you know, and I felt that like, okay, so now that I have product, what do I do? So I went to like, I think my first breakthrough was went to a friend's party, and then I was like carrying my luggage, and she said, why don't you just bring your collection to us, like a setting like this? So they were having like housewarming and party, and then at some critical point she said, now you can open your luggage. I was like, okay, now, okay. So I opened, and then it's like, wow, you know, and then they saw the clothes, and then the ladies started trying their clothes. So I think I have to give credit to the fact that, I mean, without a setting, you know, whereby people are there, and I happen to be using clothes to, like, you know, strike a conversation. People started trying, and then I think so people started trying from 2011 till 2017. So all along, I would say that I think when I finished my master's, I wanted to go to do research, and then I said, should I go for PhD, and then, or should I just do my own R&D? So I think I'm in the state that thinking that I'm still doing my own R&D, you know, because I have lots of products. Right, so I went on to try, and then like I think people were very welcoming because there's no pressure to buy, and then so people opened their house, people opened their residence, their office. I remember one of the times where I was in an SPH office, and the editors of Her World, I think mainly all the magazines are there, and they say like, oh, this label is there, and just try, you know. So that opened a lot of doors, and then of course there was write reviews. They spread they spread the journey as well. And then I think along the way, I think that because it has been never an objective, maybe for me it's never been an objective for me to make money. Yeah, so it's to create happiness, you know, it's to create communities. When I first started my journey, I was asking God, you know, so it's like what do you want me to do? And then he said that, what do I want to do? I said, I want to impact lives. And then after that, God said like, oh, you want to impact lives, do fashion. That was like, what has fashion got to do with impacting lives? You know? And then God said, oh, but you see, everybody in the world, almost everybody is wearing clothes. So if you want to impact lives, maybe it could be a possible way. So like, okay, so it didn't really dawn on me, like, what is the meaning of impacting lives until 2015 came, and then I said that SG50 came, so let's do a nationwide. So I called upon people in Singapore to say that like, oh, you love fashion, you know, just come on board. So there were a lot of people who love modeling. There were like a subset who loves designing, and then a subset that loves like craft making and sewing. So I remember it's also a setting like this. I was telling everybody that, hey, we're going to kickstart this Singapore Fashion Runway. It was a blank, and people think that I was a crazy woman. Yeah, but I think at a setting like this, we were like, okay, let's just do it. So someone will carry a sewing machine, and then someone will carry the things that he or she has been designing. So we make outfits of them, and then we put them on runway show. So the first space that was given to us was through a friend who runs Singapore Expo. So we had a whole hall full. Yeah, so it was a big hall. And it was good because it was a strategic year, whereby Singapore was celebrating like the 50th, you know. So everyone in Singapore was celebrating, our national birthday. So it has been a 3 years journey, and year after year, I always ask, why am I doing this? You know, like, I mean, I know we're very happy, but why? You know, so I think I came to a point last year, and 2016, and then we stumbled onto 2 non-profit groups. So one was the chronically ill children, and the other one was the breast cancer patients. So slowly it dawned on me that the meaning of why is that how we impact them is actually, fashion has always been very perfect, and I think from what we do, fashion for social cause, we let them cross the boundary. And then I think today, I think it's inclusive, you know, everybody can join, everybody can contribute. So I guess what did I do this is really for the pure, I think very simple objective, and this simple objectives goes with me till today. Yeah, so I think there's no pressure of doing things, it's just I think when you don't have so much pressure, then you just spread happiness, maybe. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Eileen. I can vouch for that because the recent show we had at the Poly, she manages about 150 people in a day, different departments, different areas, and we always see her smiling. My husband is sitting there, he can vouch for it. We never see her stressed, and managing so many teams, people with different abilities, is not a joke, but only when you love your job so well and so much and so deeply, you can do it like that. What I see from this, how it just flowed, is that everyone who's doing whatever they're doing is a part of their own personal learning journey that they had from probably their childhood, something that has impacted them. So coming back to you, Maddie, as I read your profile, I think the first thing I told you was that you're a blessing to this world, where change is the only constant. Don't we agree? The only thing that is constant in the world is change. And Maddie is a senior consultant for a regional organization that helps people. She actually observe and support people when overcoming the hurdles that come with managing change. This is the need of the hour, because everyone is managing change in some way or the other. I think even a newborn is managing change when the teething is happening, when they're learning how to crawl, when they're taking their first walk, few steps backwards and then forward. Two much more complex problems like organizations they're facing, and I think it's more to do with mindset. What is your take on that? What are the 2 main areas that you see in your journey that you have been helping people with, where the change has been the most important area for them to develop themselves? I mean, what are the 2 main standout areas?
I'll try to answer that one. I think each of you is an expert in your own personal change, but I'll give you a bit of context as well. Although I work for this organization, I still have my own free time. So it's all about CSR, maybe 3 days a week, where you work for the community and you help. Specifically, I help with managing conflict. So there's always conflict, regardless of whether it's resistance, whether it's undermining, whether it's sabotaging your own self, because it happens even without you knowing. So the human component, I think, is so much more important than people give it credit for. Normally you think, oh, it's the process, it's the team, it's the boss, it's the organization, but you rarely really look inside to see what is wrong with you, and acknowledging that there's something wrong with you, that you're off balance, or that something is just not there. That's very tough because you don't usually have the tools to address the imbalance. Some people do, they're lucky, those teams perform well, but where performance drops because people are not aware of what they can achieve, of what they can improve, I think that's where they kind of call us in and pay us a bit more than we should be paid, shamelessly, just to fix something that is within everybody's reach. So that's why after a week's work of this, maybe on the weekends, it's good to help the community. So how we do it is, me and some of my colleagues, we do mediation work, or we do community bridges, or we do all sorts of dialogues that are more inflammatory. This is, I have to say, the most calm and composed audience that I've ever had around me for at least 3 months, so it's quite nice. prefer change. I don't have to think about who is going to throw the next punch, so it's quite relaxing. And I'm thinking that the two main components are literally inner balance, whether it's yourself, whether it's the team, whether it's the environment around you, and also having an end point. Because you can't change anything unless you know where you're going. I know it's a cliche, but it makes so much sense because sometimes you set goals for yourself, but you don't exactly really want to get there. There are goals that are maybe aspirations rather than factual milestones. So I think it really makes a difference if you have a realistic goal that you can achieve and then just move on rather than have a huge goal in mind with no milestones to reach. I don't know, in your experience, when you were going through your own changes, what were the milestones that you put for yourself, and how did that work, if they worked?
Yeah,
I'll give this back to you.
See, this is how conversations flow.
Sorry, can you repeat again about change? Yes.
How did you change? I think I've never really talked to anyone who was a bit more creative or led some sort of a design or fashion activity. So I'm wondering how your change process went. And was it something that was very concrete, or you just kind of with the flow and then it ended up well?
I think in your case it was events, to workshops, to now daycare, engagement once in a while, to every week, to now every day. There is a change in your perception.
Actually, I think that like having worked with people that work with me, and then even my family members and community, I think they say that there's so much changes. So like when we started as a nationwide committee, it was for all ages and everyone, you know. And then 2016 came, and then we started to have special needs, and we have disadvantaged group, cancer patients, etc. People felt like yeah, how come like the community gets more and more like 50% are the other type of people, you know, that they are not very used to. And then now we are like almost like maybe 60-70%. Yeah. So and we will be starting a daycare space for predominantly an inclusive space soon. So I think that what caused me to change, I think that if you ask me, the map is already there, but I'm a bad example because I think I live in a methodology. So, you know, in the methodology, things comes right somehow. So I think today's, actually, I think that is also on the other side, is also a life skill, because when we overplan in today's technology world and competitive world, what do you do next when things goes out of your plan? So I think that, which is why we're also teaching the children and the youth and adults as well, like, you know, like, you can have plan A, but what do you do when plan B, plan C? I mean, like, my own daughter, so I've got 3 children, so like one wanted to explore arts. So she went to her DSA, direct school admission, and was quite tough. So I said that, oh, it was good because you will learn failure. You know, I mean, like, what is one thing that you have to learn in life? And then is rejection and failure, and then you probably learn success, right? So I guess that change is ever, and I think as a human, we always have choices. You know, so I guess it's also mindset, you know, like, yeah, switching on that.
For me, I guess I'm at that place in my life now where I'm allowing more flow to happen. I was in the corporate world for 15 years. Everything was ruled by balanced scorecards, KPIs, key performance indicators. And you know, every year we had obviously very clear budgets to adhere to. You know, if any department went out of budget, I had to go and find out what went wrong and why, and I had to explain it. So it was always driven by goals, very clear goals, very clear, you know, and my own balanced scorecard. Meaning, I had to explain to my boss when I didn't achieve something or why it was different. And so my life was ruled by goals. You know, when I became an accountant, when I went from audit to commercial accounting, I said to myself, okay, in 5 years I'm going to be a finance manager. Between 8 to 10 years I will be a financial controller. And by this time I will be earning 6-figure income. And I had all those type of goals. I didn't usually say them out to anyone, but it was there. I'm going to do this. Okay? And I came from somewhere else. I spoke different. I didn't speak English, Singlish, sorry. I spoke English, not Singlish. And it was a tough thing because I was not from Singapore, so it took me time to learn how people do things here. I came from a different culture, so again, you know how things work. Because Singaporeans, in my opinion, are fairly reserved people. So to get to understand how they do things, it takes time. But I was always driven by these goals. It didn't matter that I came from somewhere else, but I'm going to achieve these goals, right? So if I have to work X times more than the others, I'm going to do it. So that was the way I led my life. So everything was like, it had to work like clockwork. My days were like that. I had so much work to do. Everything had to be like clockwork. Otherwise, everything would fall apart. And so I was in that high stress, I was putting a lot of stress on myself and in the way I interacted with my children, with my husband. So everything was goal-oriented, change was not allowed. Plan means plan, okay? Or if plan A didn't work, plan B. It has to work within one of those plans. It cannot be any other way. I lived that way all throughout my career. And when I went into the homeopathic field, and I started learning about how the mind affects the body and how so many different things happen to women and how every single person is unique. Because in homeopathy, when we look at a person, we look at the whole person. We do not just treat the migraine, we do not just treat the menstrual difficulty, we do not just treat the back pain. We look at the whole person. And there I realized that everybody is so different. Therefore, it cannot follow a plan. Nothing can follow a plan. You can have a systematic way of looking at the person, but you still have to go back to what they are. And therefore, everybody is different means change must be allowed for. Without allowing for change, I cannot work with them. Right? So all this was like, it was a very subtle thing, but it was happening. And my husband will tell you, even now, sometimes I'll be like, oh, why is that plan not working? But I'm allowing more of the flow to happen. Because I'm coming to that place now. I didn't think I was going to be here today. I came to know Aarti, about a couple of weeks ago? I think, maybe. Maybe we met for the first time about a week or 2 weeks ago. So, and when she invited me, I was like, really? Me? But it just happens. And now I'm more able to allow it to happen. Because I'm not so strung up. One of the things I notice with change is, when I'm so worried about what others are going to think of me, change becomes difficult to do. But when I'm in that space where it's okay, if they laugh at me, fine, I'll laugh with them. And when I get to that place, it becomes easier to be in the flow. And then I'm able to trust the one up there. Because otherwise I'm like, why are you giving me this? Why can't you make it easier for me? But it becomes easier and easier every time I start to trust. He said this. Initially there was that, really? Me? Soul conversation? I said, okay, let's just do it and see what happens. Right? Then there was that thought, who will come? It's a weekday evening. They've got work to do. Who's going to come? But I didn't want to say anything to her like that. So I just said, okay, I'll just go there, and if no one comes, I'm going to have a nice meal and go. Once I start thinking in that way where I'm more flexible, change just happens. I don't have to do anything about it. That's just my take on it. Did I answer your question? Thank you.
Yeah, I must answer you that. That was your question, and what a beautiful one. So did you get the answer to what you were trying to ask?
Yes,
And your experience that you've had with people? Yeah.
It's true, actually. I'm not sure if I need this. Do you guys hear me?
It's fair, so that's for
Also the recording.
Oh, all right. As I was listening to you talk, I was actually wondering, what am I doing here? I mean, my nickname around the office is, I have no soul. I'm the one dead on the inside because I do all the process work. And then as my everyday self, I have to be impartial, I have to be neutral. I can't really express much emotion. So how does my soul even come out? I mean, during the day for 8, 10, whatever, how many hours. Then I come here and I unwind with super soulful people. So I'm starting to wonder, I think my soul may be coming out because of the conversation. I think it's kind of kept a bit away during the day because you don't really want to have this kind of a vulnerable conversation with people you work with or people you're trying to be professional for. So maybe there is a time and a space beyond the family to still have this conversation. And it might sound funny, but for me it's in taxis. So, because nobody really judges. You've got about what, maybe 5 to 20 minutes of really being yourself, because nobody really cares. The uncle or the auntie there has their own prejudice. They're just dragging you around trying to find out, so how many years have you been here? Are you married to a foreigner? And are you PR? Are you going to stay here? So I'm wondering, okay, so that's the projection, the outward projection without the resting bee face that I'm normally associated with. So it's kind of a relief in a way to sit in a taxi. So I decided that I'm going to drive less and take taxis more, because it's my own soul time, if that makes sense. It's free therapy, I guess.
Well, I must say, Maddie, I've had some amazing conversations with the taxi uncles, or sometimes aunties. Yeah, I've learned a little Chinese during my taxi drive. I was actually ambassador for the Qipao beauty pageant, and I had to say a few opening sentences in Chinese, and I was rehearsing that. And the uncle said, "You're saying it wrong. The accent is this way." And I actually recorded his voice, and I was trying to repeat, and it was a long journey. So he said, "You keep repeating. I'll teach you a few more words. Something like I love you, or I love Chinese, I love Qipao," and something. And it really did work, because I was doing it at the Chinese Heritage Center. Imagine how much belonging it felt to those people. An Indian girl talking in Chinese to them, all thanks to that accent. So the conversations really help. So that, we have proof that the conversations are unplanned conversations are the best form of learning, and they give you such joy. Coming back to you, Maddie, we haven't talked about your career before this. You were in army, and you were in combat army, and she had a six-pack, very until very recently, right? So tell us more about your experience about seeing life and death from that close, and how much you value life more after that beautiful experience.
Well, I'll dispel a few pieces of information. I mean, I'm not Israeli, obviously. I'm kind of Romanian, kind of German, Ukrainian. But there is drafting that is non-compulsory, so you can opt in. But a bit of a background, most of my family is in the army, and I'm the only girl. So surprise, surprise, I wanted to kind of play the same way that the boys did. So I said, yes, I do want to know how to wield the weapon. And I do want to know how to play with knives better, without cutting myself or cutting just vegetables and so on. So around 18, I decided, yes, I want to do it. So it was 12 months, last officer school. Over here, I think it's 2 years or something like that. So I went, and it was one of the most fun experiences ever. I have never seen combat. It was just joint exercises, but it was incredibly fun. And because of this experience, I was lucky enough to study on a peace and conflict program. So most of my studies in international relations, I always thought, I'm going to end up a diplomat. And my parents were like, yes, go study languages and do these things. But it turns out that I ended up in post-conflict zones. I ended up in Bosnia just after the conflict. I ended up in Sri Lanka and Nepal and so on. So somehow things aligned. I think you were spot on. I didn't plan for this change, but when it came, I didn't really resist it. So I was thinking, what should I do with it? Well, I'm not a national in Singapore, so obviously I can't advise or work for any sort of government body. So what else can I do? Well, go corporate, sell your soul, of course, work the hours, do things, but what else is there? So around the region, there is pretty much a lot of conflict, and the fact that I've had some sort of exposure to human decrepitude, to failure, human death, to all sorts of things, it didn't really desensitize me, but it got me mentally ready. So yeah, I could go for aid work, I could go for all sorts of different interesting missions, because I was qualified just because of that 1 year where I learned how to shoot a weapon. So I thought that it makes sense, in a way, to approach death as if you are ready for it, to approach death because you eventually end up there. And if you're a spiritual person, no matter in what direction it is, then you can tap into that in order to have a real conversation with the people that you see there. I may not speak Indonesian, my bahasa is pretty rubbish, but at least you do get some sort of empathy or some sort of human connection with who is there, with the suffering, with the person, with whatever they're trying to achieve beyond their current state. So the conversation just moves from those in suffering to those that are trying to help, who are themselves kind of suffering by proxy. And at the same time, it moves on to maybe a higher level, an organization or a different tier that is trying to help the proxies, and so on and so forth, until you end up to some sort of regulated body that is also trying to help. So I don't think it was much of an easy journey. It wasn't a really planned journey, but I think just going with the change and having precisely what you said, a way of dealing with change. I really believe in systems. So knowing how to deal with it really helped me cope through going from, I don't know, I never had a military career, it was just drafting. My father said I shouldn't really sign on because I'm pretty nasty and I would probably never get promoted, his exact words. And it doesn't help that I have 2 X chromosomes as well, so that would never happen, a feminist journal of anything. So I decided to go outside and look for something different. And then further on, because my husband is Singaporean, I decided to follow him here. So in the end, the journey just kept changing, but I realized that the things that anchored me in every kind of reality always stayed the same. It's always about people. It's always about internal turmoil, and it's always about trying to balance it, either with myself or with anything external that can help. Did that answer the question? Not really.
Thanks for sharing your perspective. I think I would like to have you more involved in this conversation. If anyone has any question, it doesn't have to be like a question. If anything you want to share or you want to know from them, please raise your hand so I know who it is who wants to ask, so I can bring the mic to you. So we make it more interesting. More interactive as well. No one so far, so you can keep your question in your mind. I'll move on. Yeah. So I think all 3 of you have your own style of managing with the change. There are some people are system driven, some just go with the flow. Now you're going with the flow, and I think Eileen is already going with the flow as the way she's been developing her company as well as her life. But when I just wanted to ask, since 3 of you have been through a journey from different professions to different profession now, and more connection with people. I think it's all 3 of them, though are in different professions, but there's a commonality that they are working with people. So there's a very simple thing I learned when we were doing our management, that no matter what you're selling, what the product is, it's the people who sell to people and people who buy from people. So end of the day, no matter where the technology will go, we reach the moon, but we will still be people. So it's all about people interaction. And 3 of you are actually front-ending. You're like every day with people. And today, Maddie was sharing that she actually went to her office and she found people in gloomy faces, and she realized that few of them, half of her team has been asked to move to another country. And they have to take the decision very quick. So change with people, so it all boils down to people. How do you find your own, where do you find yourself in the midst of this chaos with people? And how do you find your own soul and your own grounding, especially when you are helping people with the pain, really when you're working with trying to bring that inclusivity in every sphere from 50% to now 80%, and in case, Maddie, in your case, you're actually right in the middle of conflict. So how do you find your own peace and your own soul and connect back to it and find your own self as a person? What is your point, grounding? Whoever wants to do it first.
I see that as actually a few questions in one, but I'll just answer it as it comes. Again, I'm just going to be in the flow. Every day I see women, and when they come to me, they go to the deepest part of themselves, they're sharing their pain, and almost every single one cries. So having come from a finance background where I was looking at numbers in the computer every day, and of course I managed a team of people, but no one cried. I hope I didn't make them cry. Okay? So, but when I came to this kind of work and I decided that I'm going to work with women on their emotional issues, and when they first started crying, I would feel very shaken up. Because the natural tendency for us as humans, when someone cries in our presence, is to go and hug them, hold their hand, and say, don't worry, things will get better. But I still had to be professional about it. Because I couldn't just go and hug them and start doing that. Because then, no, it's not about me, it's not about me, it's about them. So I had to learn how to hold space for them. I spoke to a friend of mine who's a psychologist, and because I don't come from a psychology background, I come from a coaching background. And she said, do something really simple. This is what some of the psychologists do. They just take the tissue box and move it closer to the client. That's all they do, nothing else. And when I started practicing that, the clients felt safe. They could now talk about it. When I just moved that tissue box to them, that was it. And they felt safe, they could talk about things. They felt, okay, this lady understands me. All I did was move a tissue box. But they saw that as someone who's accepting whatever they were going through. Someone who was not disturbed by their crying. Someone who was willing to allow that space. And when they started doing that, quite often when the crying finished, they themselves got to a place of clarity. I didn't have to do a lot. That's the trick. So that's the first part. So initially it was affecting me. I had to learn how to detach. So after every client left, I actually did some energy practices where I would cut the cords with them. Does anyone understand what is the meaning of cutting cords? Because when with anyone that we are having a deep, emotionally intense conversation, there is an automatic cord that forms between us, an energy cord that forms between, like if I'm talking to you and we are having a very deep emotional conversation, whether it's emotionally charged as in anger or even emotional where you're telling me your pain, there is an automatic cord that is formed between us. And if we don't cut it, that goes with us. And when I see 5 clients in a day, I'm carrying the cords from 5 of them. So I had to learn how to cut that consciously. Initially it was something I had to do consciously, because otherwise at night I would still be thinking about their problem and I couldn't sleep. And that was going to affect my ability to help the person, because once I got attached and sucked into that, I couldn't be professional enough to help them. So I had to consciously cut it. I learned some tools from pranic healing. Does anyone know about pranic healing? It's kind of like Reiki, but it's a different system. So I actually did some of the cutting cords with that. But as time went on, because I got better and better at it, I don't have to consciously cut the cord. But when a person leaves my office, I've already cut the cord. I'm no longer in that space, and I'm ready for the next person. But I still have to ground myself, because I'm of no use to them if I'm disturbed. Because I'm really of no use to those people. Because when they come to me, yes, I'm good enough to be able to talk to them, but if I'm not in the right space here, I can't really help them, because only this will help them. This will not be working very well. But I need to be aligned so that I can help them in both ways. Right? So every day I have to consciously do certain things with myself. I'm not a great meditator. I should be doing more, okay? But I think one of the key things is meditation. I think a lot of people will agree that it will really help us to ground ourselves. The other thing that I was talking to someone earlier about is we are also disconnected from nature. We need to get back to nature. We have to get back to nature, and that's one of our biggest problems, because if you look at nature, it's always in balance. You can have a tsunami, you can have an earthquake, you can have other things, but it always goes back to balance. And that's why we need to get back to. We need to get back to nature. One of the simplest ones is walk on sand or walk on grass. And that's one thing that we are very blessed. We have a garden in our home, so we do get to see the trees at least when we wake up. And sometimes I go and touch them, I talk to my plants, silly things. But they are great. It helps me ground myself. It helps release the unnecessary energies that I'm carrying around with me. So, long answer to a short question, but, but that's how I ground myself.
So I actually started in 2014 journaling my happy day. So some people wonder why do I do that. So I think I woke up one day thinking that like, hey, this could be the last day that I'm on earth. And you know, like maybe I should be very happy now that I'm still alive and I could like give thanks to me being alive. So I started journaling that in 2014. So if you like me on Facebook, you just find Eileen Yap, right? So I will, for every other day that I felt that I'm basically stirred and felt really happy and authentically happy. So I will just I think thank God for being alive and having the ability to do what I like to do, to see the people, to like what you share, to see the stars, the feel the breeze, you know, the wind, you know, etc. So I think that yeah, I guess this kind of like this way of living gives me that freedom every day. Is like I'm like reborn every day. You know, you wake up and like, what if this is like my last day? Like, like luckily I'm still sort of, I mean, I don't know lucky or not lucky, but it's like I'm still sort of able to like touch that someone that I love, you know, like talk to my children, my family members, see them. So I'm living each day like that. Just simple.
Coming from that, may I add one more point? And one thing I do is write in a gratitude journal. I don't journal as like writing my story every day or that sort of thing, but I do write. I do write in a gratitude journal. And there was a time when I was working with a coach, and she gave me the challenge of writing 100 things that I'm grateful for at one go. I said, what? 100? First of all, 20 maybe, yeah, I can do that. But 100? She said, no, you have to do it. And then at one go, no stopping. If I stopped, I had to sit there until the next thing came. So I took it as a challenge and I did. And you won't believe it. The first few were all like, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my sons, my husband, I'm grateful I have a house, I have a car, whatever, all those. You know, the very externally focused answers were coming. But once that started clearing, what else was there? And then as I went on writing, I was grateful for the internet. I was grateful for Facebook, which allowed me to connect with people. I was grateful for my spectacles, because my power is very high. And if I'd been born 500 years ago, I'd probably be totally blind, because I couldn't see people, I couldn't read, I couldn't do things. Then I was grateful for my books, I was grateful. So as it went on, it became so much deeper. And I was in that state for several days, you know, that feeling gratitude for everything. And then I sent it to my coach, and she came back and said, write another 100. Are you crazy? But trust me, that was one of the best experiences of my life. Writing that and then just being in that state where you start looking at life without complaint, without cribbing at anything. You just feel grateful that you're there, that you are born at this time, in this country, you're here, and so on. So gratitude journal is one that I highly recommend, and if any of you don't know how to do it, you can always talk to me later. Thank you.
Mine is pretty straightforward. I mean, before coming to Singapore, I like the idea of being belittled because it feels very safe. So I have a telescope, and a way of recentering was literally to just see whatever's going on in the sky. I would look, maybe see what meteor showers or whatever would happen in that place of the world. It's easy to carry with you, and now you have so many apps on the phone that allow you to focus really well. But then I realized that maybe, just maybe, it's a sign of opulence if you pay God knows how much for whatever lens, because I became obsessed with the instrument, if that makes sense. So I stopped focusing on what I wanted, and I would think about, oh, but this constellation is not in focus, I need the next telescope, and so on. So I stopped completely when I came here because the lighting is just terrible, you can't really find good places to set it up. And I realized that starting a petting zoo was the best thing I could have done. So it started with getting a dog that nobody really wanted because it was some dangerous breed apparently, but it's pretty nice, it's domesticated, it replies to commands, it's just not very Singapore friendly because it's big, black, it has very pointy ears, and it looks scary, but it's a nice dog. So I started to walk it around the neighborhood, and then people started to warm up towards me and then to warm up towards the dog, so it became the neighborhood petting dog. And then we added 2 more cats to it. The dog started playing with the cats, so it's therapeutic for him as well.
Wow. The dog started playing with the cats.
I think it's the dog that he's very nice about it. He knows he's big and nothing will happen to him. And then the 2 cats are very playful, so we play tricks on him. So every morning, I don't have children with my husband, so we wake up and we start petting animals. So we start with the chinchilla because it's the softer one, and it's always where you leave it. Then we start calling the cats, and then some neighborhood cats also turn up because they know that there's fish for breakfast or whatever leftovers. So then you see all sorts of cats in front of the door. And then the dog wakes up because he hears the cats. So you start petting from small to big. And then I end up with the husband. So that's pretty much a good de-stressing mechanism.
Wow, 3 women in 3 very different de-stressing mechanisms. A happy journal, a gratitude journal, and pettings. And pets in that order. So any questions? Anybody is ready with some questions? Okay. So I think I'll just ask quick one to close this conversation. It has been wonderful having all 3 of you. I can go whole night, but I don't think we have time for that. But let me just ask you a very Oprah style, let's close it in Oprah style because I'm a big fan of Oprah. I'll ask you now, all 3 of you believe in God, all 3 of you are spiritual in your own way. Let me ask you, you feel God when? And you have to answer in 1 line or in 1 word. You feel God, the presence of God when? Maddie and then Vimala.
Alright, so let's ask the Orthodox to say things first, just as it was happening. But to me, God is a higher ordering principle, so I would just say that I find God wherever there is balance or symmetry, even if it's imperfection. But there needs to be some sort of balance in it.
I see God when I see my clients. I see what they go through and the way they...
Gotta be, I took it literal. When I was told, don't embarrass the family, you have to be perfect at this. I took it literally. Now I realize that there was a lot of effort in taking things literally, so it would be nice to go with the flow. Maybe it wouldn't really hurt considering that the path ended up where it should be, and the experiences did build up to it. So I'm not extremely motherly as a type, probably you can tell that. So I'm only horrified at how my child would perceive me because I'm not the warm and fuzzy type. So I think my life experiences made me very detached. Maybe not emotionless, but very detached. So I would tell myself to have more emotional experiences, to not really be afraid of having soul conversations earlier on, of getting more attached to people, because people are not exactly a weakness. They don't really need fixing. And that's the approach that I had from my 20s onwards.
Interestingly, I had similar messages from my mom. If I brought in 98 marks, she would say, where did the 2 marks go? Okay. And that's the kind of mother I had. So she meant well. She wanted me to be perfect. Okay. She meant well, but the message that came to me was that no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't good enough. That's the message that I got from her. Although I'm sure she didn't mean it that way, but that's the message I got. And coming from a very traditional, conservative South Indian family, boys were considered superior to girls in my time. I think it's getting better, but it's still there. Okay. So I always had this thing that somehow I was inadequate, that I would never be good enough for her. So bless her soul, she's gone. But till the day she died, she could never say to me that she was proud of me, no matter what I had achieved. So if I look back to my younger self, I would say, dear girl, just love yourself. It doesn't matter what anyone else, including your mom, what anyone else thinks. Because when you love yourself, the world will start loving you. But when you dislike yourself, the world just agrees with you. Because that's what the world does. So the world will resonate with whatever energy you are putting out there. So if you are putting out that energy of loving yourself, the world will just say, yes, that's true, we love you too. Right? All right?
So when I was little, I was the only child till about 12. So I didn't really know how to share things. And then after that, I had a brother at the age of about 13. And after that, I dived into, I think I was very hardworking in studies, so I was studying. And then I also pursued like modeling. And then after that, I went into advertising. So I think all my life, if I had not known God, I think if I look at my younger self, I was very mean. Because I think that I must have hurt a lot of people, now looking back, because I was probably, when I was working, I was the account executive, so in an ad agency, and then handling clients, and then after that I had to, after that I had to handle, I worked in a startup, and I was the marketing manager at a very young age. So I had pretty senior people reporting to me, and I think that I was very mean to them because I stand very strongly about brand identity. So when somebody breaks the rule, I will tell them that you broke the rule, and this is how you should, be consulting me when you use this brand. So I think that along the way, because I wasn't experiencing motherhood and I wasn't really a believer, so I think the way that I led my life, the younger self was very me, not considering others. So I think the last, ever since I started my own label and then started my own journey of entrepreneurship, I think God was good because He trained me, to take the humble pie. So I was carrying the luggage and always asking why you ask me to serve, and impact people. I still don't understand, but I was carrying luggages and I had to, serving people with clothes means that I have to go to them, and then I actually I'm like the Barbie doll service, I will go to their house and I will zip them up and then they'll start telling me stories. And then sometimes I think people are quite nice, they continue to tell you stories. And then it went on for hours. I said, I just want to sell one piece of clothes. But it's okay, this is part of the service attitude, it's okay. Yeah, so I think that trained me out until recently, when I'm still carrying things and then in the hot sun and still walking, and then my sense of direction is not very good, I'm still lost. So yeah, I think had I not had all the training and I wouldn't know what does it mean to be having challenges in life in a way, and then when I look at the special needs and the disadvantage, and then I think recent years, I think my children were not feeling so good, was not well. Had I not met with my own setbacks in life, I would not know what is the meaning of life, so looking back at my earlier self, I think that for those people who have known me, I think that I must have been quite mean, and I hope that I have the time to meet them again to say sorry to them. Yeah.
Great, so many lessons. I enjoyed this conversation. Did you all? Did you all? Very weak, yes. Did you all?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And I think that's a perfect closure, going back to your childhood days and reliving those memories. Savor those memories. You can go back and dream on them. And a lot for us to chew upon today. I think all I want to say is thank you for coming and being a part of this event. And thank you, Rahul, for making this happen. And thanks to all of you for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.